Welcome to the Mortgage Wise radio show and video podcast, where we educate and provide expert advice on personal finance, mortgages, and real estate investing. As a result of what we do, our team has helped hundreds of first-time buyers, experienced buyers, and real estate investors achieve their goals of home ownership.
I wonder if there's a connection there.
Here are your executive producers and mortgage advisors, Randy and Veronica Chambliss.
All right, guys. What up? Welcome to another episode of the Mortgage Wise radio show. I am Randy Chambliss, the executive director of the Louisiana Housing Authority, and also a corporate branch manager with Geneva Financial. And I have to my right.
I'm Veronica Chambliss. I'm also a corporate branch manager with Geneva Financial and a housing director of Louisiana Housing Authority. Now, Ethan, I saw you over there jamming. Don't it make you want to dance?
Listen, I just was all in. I want to be clear. You could be both the executive producer and executive director. Okay, Randy, go ahead. Don't worry about that.
We gonna roll.
All right, guys. So in today's episode, we're going to discuss why is financial education awareness important to the health of our community in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. So Ethan Ashely is the co-founder and co-CEO of School Board Partners. Beyond his role as School Board Partners, Ethan serves as the board president for the Orleans Parish School Board and is a co-owner of an investment company titled J.E. Howard Investment Group. Raised in a single-family household, Ethan beat the odds after being diagnosed with cancer as a child by becoming one of the youngest Black students to graduate from high school at the age of 16. Afterwards, he continued his education at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he obtained a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and a Juris Doctor degree by the age of 22. So Ethan, we want to welcome you to the Mortgage Wise radio show and video podcast.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so blessed to be here. Very grateful for the invitation, both Veronica and Randy. Thank you. You know, honestly, my wife was like, they're going to have you on. I said, I am somebody, Lord. Don't you do that to me. I am, no. Don't get me wrong. She loves me. She's excited. Also, she'd be right here with me. Yeah,
absolutely. And listen, oh man, that's awesome, man. It's nothing like working with your wife, man. Me and Veronica have so much fun. It just allows our relationship to really gel just that much further, because we not only, we husband and wife, we business partners, but we're also friends, so that goes a long way.
Yeah, now we have fun. At first, he wanted to choke my neck. I wanted to choke his neck. It was like that. Don't let him fool you.
My son loved WWE, and we might have been doing WWE in here.
Yeah, but we better now. We better, right?
So, I love it. First, I just want to say thank you too, for taking your time out, your business schedule, because you could be doing a lot of things, but you chose to come and bring some value to our audience, and hopefully we could save some lives and turn some lives around by one, hearing your story, because your story is a phenomenal story. When I first met you, we was actually doing a Zoom speaking engagement a while back.
That's
and
right.
When you told your story, I was like, you know what, I have to connect with the young man, because it was similar background, and just to see how you grew through those challenges. And so we need that today. So first off, tell us a little bit about the company that you co-founded, right? What is it? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So, first, let me shout out to my business partner, Jamie Hooper. We both went to Howard together. She's a Ben Franklin graduate, proud Ben Franklin graduate, and we had the opportunity to go to Howard together, graduated the same year. But essentially, the company, which is J.E. Howard, thus the Howard, we both went to Howard.
Yeah, there you go. All right, got
it. And J.E. Jamie, Ethan, J.E.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So J.E. Howard Investment Group, it came about by virtue of us both being interested in wealth development through property. And so her and I were both interested in really doing some development and it ended up evolving over time, which is crazy. So we were both interested in property development. I want to shout out my guys, Mike Meredith and Andre Lewis, who helped us actually get started with the property development side of the business. And we ended up being in a group with a couple of phenomenal individuals. So we actually started in a pod group of like 4 or 5 different companies, learning about how to get the right financing, how to set yourself up as a business to actually do flips and all those types of things. And then as a result of that work, Jamie and I ended up being successful on a flip, and our mentors actually got us on a second flip. So, and from there we had some monies, and we were thinking beyond that, I think we can invest in other things outside of property. So we just started to develop, investing in businesses, largely Black-owned businesses, and providing support to them in order, like really low interest loans, to provide them with the opportunity to get capital when they wouldn't be able to. And so, I'm proud of some of the things that we've been able to invest in that most people probably have no idea that we invested in, and I'm super excited about it. So.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about the other company too that you have, the
school board
partner.
Yeah. So I'm the co-founder, co-CEO of School Board Partners. We support elected school board members around the country to really provide them with the support necessary for them to be able to show up as their best selves, to support their district as needed. And really the function is rooted in anti-racist practices and racial equity. But it really is grounded in this idea that leaders in real respects need support once they are elected. Like you just can't elect people and expect them to know all the answers. In fact, that's what happens. And in fact, our leaders need skills, knowledge, and capacity building, particularly those who are working with some of the most precious, resources that we know, which is our young people, who at some point in time will lead us and hopefully hire us when we get old, right? I mean, that's the real goal, right? So please. But yeah, and look, I will tell you, this work really stems from my own personal background. I had the opportunity to grow up in a single parent household, and I tell people all the time, there is I know no young person who is in heaven or otherwise asking God to please give them a poor family, and they really want to be able to get grit and resilience. That doesn't happen. The family that you're born into is really a lottery. We could be born in South Africa. We could be born in New Orleans. We could be born in Compton. It's a lottery. And what we know for sure is those young people didn't ask to be born into predicaments that aren't necessarily stable financially. And so, my goal has always been to ensure that we're providing our young people with the best stable families and circumstances in order to extract the best out of them, so that they can, solve the issues that we have yet to solve, beat lead on the cancer research, so on and so forth. But I think we have a lot of untapped potential that's left on our playgrounds, and that's a result of adults not making decisions with kids, in mind first.
Right. Absolutely. And, and having said that, tell us a little bit, like, what kept you motivated throughout those challenges that you grew through?
Yeah, man, I think it's when you grow up in a circumstance like I've watched every Rocky movie, every movie that is like, the underdog, right. Sign me up for that, right? Put me as the underdog, right? If Michael B. Jordan wants to be, at some point in time do my story, I'd love for that to be a thing. So someone shout him out. But like the truth of the matter is, just tag him, let him know I'm here for it, my dear brother. But the point here is to say, I was motivated by like my circumstance. And, I was born with cancer, had the opportunity, neuroblastoma, had the opportunity to, see another day. And my grandfather, who was my guy, I love my grandfather. He raised me, him and my grandmother, but they were very clear to me to say that you're on this earth for a reason. and you could have been taken away very easily as a young person, but God spared you. And so what are you going to do to, make an impact in the world? And then from there, I think, I don't know if, man, Randy, I don't even know if you know this story. So as a young man, I was very precocious. That's the word I'm gonna use in this moment. AKA, I had a lot going on as a youngster. And, as a result, man, because I was very keenly aware of my poverty, right? My mother was married, found herself divorced, raising 3 boys. We were living on government housing assistance. I think most would know it as Section 8, but it was a different type of program, but similar to that. We had food stamps before EBT cards, right? Like, where you had to count it at the counter. Yeah. I was embarrassed, right? So, we would have those, my mother would give us those sayings like, we don't have nothing, don't look at nothing, don't ask for nothing. Right. And I would start to.
I heard that growing up many times too.
I'm familiar.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So I just didn't ask. I would just take. I would just take. And that's bad, man. So my mother caught me stealing at the age of 5, 6, took me to the local police precinct, before getting with me. She got with me before. She denies this to this day right now, right? I want to acknowledge that. My mom got with me before we went to the police precinct. All right, cool. I'm going to clear that up. And then, clear that up for the record. And then at 6, man, I'm sitting there handcuffed to a grown man, and my mother's trying to, basically convince me to change my lifestyle, my thinking around this. And this is what gets me back to motivation, because what I didn't understand is, why is there laws that punish you for being impoverished? Like, why is there laws for you not being able to, as a young person, get, I wanted like Bubblicious and a little, like, why are you punishing me for something that I have no idea around, or like system? And then later you find out there's systematic reasons why we are where we are, right? And so, I like to tell people, 16 years later, I graduated from law school at the age of 22, right? And so the motivation for me in that moment was clear. Like, I was like, I need to change the policies, because the policies are telling me that I deserve to be in this position, and I didn't agree with that. And so, yeah, man, I ended up I ended up enrolling in college before I actually enrolled in high school. I took an Algebra 2 course at East Los Angeles Community College. And then from there, I started high school and was in pre-cal and started dual enrolling myself. I actually moved out of my own house and moved in with a Hispanic family in the East Los Angeles community, so that I could be closer to the high school, because I was in the law magnet program. And I would go from high school, and then I take a bus to go to the community college, at the tender age of 13. So I was going back and forth. And then, within the 3-year time period, I had enough credits to graduate from high school at 16. And then I went off to Howard University, and the rest is history from there, man. So, I was on the pathway. I'd like to talk about even the fundamentals of this. Like, we live with my grandparents who lived in Compton. There's a great show right now on Amazon Prime called Them. My colleague. Come on, I watched all of it too. My classmate.
How is it that I didn't watch it? She didn't tell me about it. Well,
me and the children.
I don't know if the kids should have been watching that, but I'm that's not neither.
The older ones.
Okay, the older ones. I got you. That's appropriate. Well, Them is actually one of my classmates from Howard. Deborah is the lead actress in that. But I bring this up because, the setting is that they moved from the South to the West Coast, and there was a great migration that took place during that time. A great book called The Warmth of Other Suns notates the million African Americans who migrated from the South to Chicago, to California, so on and so forth. My grandmother was a part of that, and my great grandmother, her mother bought the house that my grandparents still live in to this day for like $22,000. And then, my grandparents were the first owners, like, to really own something in that way. And I got to see it, live in it, experience it. My grandfather bought the house from my great grandmother before she passed. And that house is still in my family. but my mother's generation, they didn't buy. So my mother didn't buy. She rented her whole life, still renting. And the first thing I did out of law school at the age of 23 was I bought my first house. I was like, oh yeah, I seen the blueprint. And then from there, the rest is history in terms of like, having the opportunity to link with Jamie and then develop the business that we created. But yeah.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Thank you for telling that story. And that just kind of brings us back, to the topic today.
Thank you.
The topic today, which is why is financial education awareness important to the health of our community in the midst of COVID-19's pandemic? Veronica and I, we did a show last week, was episode 14, and we kind of went into great details of our humble opinion why, we hear the words in terms like financial wellness, but sometimes we don't really understand what those words are, right? You have, health wellness, you have all these different things in regards to your health, dental, vision, et cetera, but nobody was really talking about financial wellness. And, like Ethan, you most likely know this, but when a doctor is doing an organ transplant, one of the first things herself, or that man, if it's a male, one of the things they do is implement stress hormones into that patient to shut off their immune system. So which means that now that organ has an opportunity to be accepted by the body because the immune system is not fighting it, right? And so if that's the fact, and that's, people could Google that, do some research on it. But if that's the fact, then what are this being injected in you as a hormone, right? So when we are going throughout our day, right, especially during COVID, we had a lot of people lost their income, whether it was partial of the income or all of the income was literally laid off. So one of the major things that happened at that time, around this time last year, is that the stress levels went extremely high for people. Yeah. So now all of a sudden we have COVID-19, but we have the stress levels high. And then when we look at prior to the pandemic, even to the day in the midst of it, the number one reason for stress, and this is public knowledge, you can Google that as well, just type in what's the number one cause of stress, and the answer is going to be money. That answer is going to be finances. So, Veronica and I, we're on this mission like, well, what if, right, we could provide financial education awareness like we're doing today? What if we could hear stories of how you came from being in poverty to where you are right now to be able to lend and help other families to come out of poverty, right? What would that look like if we could lower the stress levels of individuals in our community today by simply solving one problem? And that's financial education, allowing individuals to have a personal financial plan to, one, lower their living expenses, two, minimize or pay off their debt, three, raise up those credit scores as high as they can, and four, create cash flow. Those are the two words that I learned from my mentor a long time ago, was cash and flow. And so that's the reason, what we wanted to kind of get that word out there, awareness. I said, listen, you have to get your finances in order because that's the number one cause of stress. So if you want to fight this virus, right? I understand we have the vaccine, but if you want to add a little bit extra to that, let's not be stressed, because that stress caused a lot of marriages to detach over the years as well. So, that's what we really wanted to share with you and get your thoughts as well. Like, what's your thoughts about the financial wellness of our community, right? How important it is.
Well, I think it's critical, right? I think there's two things that, are important for our community to be able to fight. It's racism. Racism is like uno number one for me. And then it's poverty, right? And like those two things, I think are certainly, I think this generation's charge to be able to address. And for, you see there's a lot of data statistics that talk about these things. And I think you all just, Randy, you just eloquently, stated it, but there's other facts that show, for instance, if like there's this big push around baby bonds, being able to provide young people with some form of financial savings such that, that savings would then allow them an opportunity or an intro into the financial awareness world, right? And I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan in particular of us as a school district, but as a larger culture, particularly the government, training its citizens on the best ways to be financially sound. I think we've seen over the last 5 years, even with our legislature in Louisiana, a move towards allowing for some form of financial education happening within schools. And I think that's the right thing. But what I'll tell you, being able to, I mean, there's data that shows that if a young person leaves with any type of savings account, any type of money in a savings account, when they graduate from high school, they're like twice as likely to finish college. And I think that there's like, there's a lot of data out here that talks about, financial wellness and how it's linked to happiness and success. And I think, I think starting at that young, tender age is one of the most important things that I think we can do. And I say that because, man, I have so many colleagues that graduated from law school like myself, are working at big law firms or did big law, and they are depressed, sad, and trying to figure out their life. And it's largely because somebody told them that was the thing that they wanted to do and should be doing. Whereas I think ultimately the thing that we need to figure out is, what's the type of lifestyle that you want to lead and live? And then how do you create the opportunities to do that within the world, right? So what type of job? So you're saying, look, I really want to be able to I want to have kids and I want to be able to go to their games at a certain time. Right. Well, then you probably don't want to work at a law firm where they work you, 100 and something hours in a week, right? Like that's not the lifestyle that's going to be able to lend itself to the type of world that you're trying to create for you and your family. And for me, man, I was so big on financial stability and security, coming from the circumstance that I grew up in, that I'm now in a place where I'm trying to shift the way in which I see the world, deal with the world, and offer to the world, my own pieces. And I spent a lot of time reading, right? So most recently I read, the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, right? In Your Rich Life, which is a really good read. It gives you most of the financial tips and tools, but it's really about creating a lifestyle that you believe and deem would be your rich life, right? And everyone's rich life isn't $1 million and in the bank and all that other stuff, right? And so, I think being able to determine your rich life, whether it is living mortgage free without any debt, and being able to travel when you want to, and not really, and work when you choose to. I think, there's certainly a lifestyle on how to do that. But it's being, I think thoughtful with having the conversation about finances, which, we don't really do, Randy. We don't really talk about it in community. It's actually like a faux pas. Like if you start talking about money, people are like, what's wrong with you? You're an asshole, right? Like,
right.
And so, I try to normalize all that. I want to give you every cent. I want to give you every dollar. And my wife probably would tell you stop doing that. But I want to give you what I know, especially coming from where I came from, because I think the goal is to break intergenerational poverty. And I think if we do that, then and get people to the working and middle class, then I think a lot of the challenges that we see in society, particularly in urban districts, would start to dwindle away, as well as we dealing with racism, right? Like we got to deal with racism.
Absolutely.
but if we get, I'm telling you, we deal with poverty, I think a lot of us would be fine than than where we're at.
I agree. And I want to touch on this because you said the key words, in the schools. So think about that. And we were taught at a young age, because they say you can teach anything to children and it'll stick with them up until the age of 7, right? If we start that young in kindergarten and start teaching them about money and finances, and you can't never doubt a child. You don't know how much that child can actually learn. Some people may think it's too early. Me personally, I don't. Introduce it to them. So in the schools, if it can start there, just imagine how well off we will be when we get to college, by the time we finish high school. Because it's a lot of people, like you said, a lot of attorneys that's depressed trying to figure out their life. That's true, because why? It goes back to the finances. You'd be surprised the number of people that have these high positions that don't have a financial education. It's just not there.
Exactly. I mean, just because, some people, they might build a, large income, but they also have a large debt, large expenses. So, you might have bigger toys, but you're still in debt. And that just kind of brings me to my story a little bit. I grew up born and raised in New Orleans. I did come from a two-parent household. I had an older brother who was sharing with me some things to avoid as a teenager, what he went through. But still in all, growing up in the city of New Orleans, I still became an at-risk youth. I became a teenage father, a struggling teenage father. And by the time I made 25 years old, Hurricane Katrina came and literally destroyed, the city. And my house was one of them. Water was to the roof, couldn't save anything, not even a photo, right? And I was working as a stationary engineer at that time. So I was making pretty good money, as they would say, but I was also spending really good money. It's going right out the door, right? Yeah. And at that time, my credit score was horrible. I'll be the first one to say it. It was in the low 500s. I had less than $500 in my bank account. And I remember sitting in an Atlanta hotel room when we evacuated. My feet was flat against that floor. Arms was in my lap, just staring at the news and realizing a grocery store right near my home was underwater. So I knew at that time I was homeless, didn't know what to do, right? And so I realized, you know what? This can never, ever happen again. Right? I have a family that's leaning on me. Here I am, don't have a house and don't have no money, and credit score horrible. So, within that year, my brother had purchased a home 1 year prior to Hurricane Katrina, and his home was okay. It was in Slidell, but he taught me some information and gave me resources so I could buy my home. So throughout the year, I was working on myself personally, got into those books like you was reading, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that particular book. I love that. I'm definitely gonna look up that book. And then just getting that financial knowledge. And I met a mentor. He was a senior vice president with a global financial company, and he taught me some rules. So I implemented those rules. I raised my credit score up. I saved some money. And then within a year, in December 2006, I bought my first home. I was 26 years old. And 30 days later, I bought my first rental property. So naturally, people was asking me, how did I do it, right? And so I started sharing those same resources, and it became a passion of mine. And I ended up, at that time, becoming a mortgage loan originator, because I felt like, well, if I can help people have a house, a roof over their head, then that's something I ain't had before. But the principles that I use is the same principle that, Ethan, is that there's two financial objectives everybody want to accomplish. Number one, they want to live a lifestyle today where they can go to work or have their business income coming in, where they have enough money to pay all their bills and have enough money left over to relax, take vacations when they want, go to work when they want. They just want to have that freedom. And then the second financial objective is that their future. At some point, they want to retire or just don't work again, but they still need to have that income coming in every month to sustain their lifestyle. And we know that, the Social Security is not going to do it. Pension plans is almost gone or obsolete. That's not going to do it. But in order for us to obtain those two personal financial objectives, there's 4 challenges that we have to know and we have to be willing to overcome. Yeah. And that's number one is taxes. We have to understand that we can minimize our taxes. Sometimes, oftentimes, we work in just a full-time employee job, we're being taxed the most, and we don't realize it, up to 32, 33% in some cases.
More than our owner.
More than our owner. So now taxes taking a fourth of our check before we even get it, right? The second thing we have to overcome is debt, right? And most people don't realize that taxes actually causes debt in some cases. For example, when people come to us for a mortgage or somebody go to another bank for some type of loan, one of the first things that banker is going to ask for is not the GPA,
report card.
not the report card. They want to know statement. What is your financial statements, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to ask them, hey, how much do you earn gross? Not net, but how much you earn gross? So when you say, hey, I make $50,000 a year gross, and some people, is happy for that, but they're not bringing home $50,000 because Uncle Sam just took a big chunk out of it, right? So they only bring home maybe $38,000 for the year. But they have their cars, they have their homes, and all that was based on the lifestyle of $50,000. And so now you have this gap that's between, because they're not bringing home their true money. So the first thing they do is use a credit card to bridge that gap. So now you have taxes is a challenge we have to overcome and learn how to minimize legally. 2, debt, pay off that debt, minimize it as much as possible. Number 3 is credit, be able to get that credit as high as they possibly can so they can get the best rates. And then 4 is just consumer spending, just having the mindset of that, hey, I have a goal, I have a vision, and I have to be able to have a spending plan in place. And then one of the solutions, is that you have to have that personal financial plan. You got to be committed to it. But I think that commitment from this personal experience is just having that vision, like you mentioned earlier. You have to choose your future. Like, what do you really want your life to look like? Lack, poverty, in debt, working every day, don't have no freedom, that's the lifestyle you want? Or are you going to take that time and be bold and say, you know what? I'm going to write my vision down, I'm going to make it plain. This is what the life I want to live. I want to be debt free. I want to have cash flow coming in. I want to be able to obtain those 2 financial objectives. So I just think, the conversations like we have it now is needed, not only like you say in our household, but like you and Veronica were saying in the school, because that child is a sponge. Anything, their mind is wide open. So even though they might not be able to repeat it to you at that morning about a financial statement, but it's going into that subconscious mind and it's creating a program.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. I remember in 7th grade, my math teacher had us look up stocks and taught us about how to actually look stocks up. We had to choose a stock, and then we had to, put fake money into the stock, and then watch the growth or decline of that stock over a certain period. And from that experience, it stuck with me to this day.
I agree. I had that. You said 7th grade. I think I got that in the 9th or 11th grade in high school, and it taught me how to read the stock.
Yeah,
you see, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, it's stuck with me too. Now, look, I'm terrible with the stock market, but that's neither here nor there. I want to acknowledge that it opened my mind to the idea of what it meant to control your experience. And after that, my grandfather, when I bought my first car, he taught me about this idea of having, a secure credit card where the money, you already have the money and you're essentially borrowing the money that you have to pay the thing, and you're paying yourself back, which will make your whole, which will increase your credit score. But you didn't actually, you're borrowing the money from yourself and you're paying yourself back on this credit card, right? And so my grandfather taught me how to build credit in that way. And I bought my first car, Impala, 2000. It wasn't 2000. It was an Impala, and it was good. It was a good car. I loved every bit of it. It rolled. It rolled. And then look, I think, to your point, right? Like, the big thing that I had to overcome is this idea around taxes and like developing, because, when you come from a certain, you come from a certain place where you're used to getting a return. Oh, I'm gonna get a tax return.
Right.
And then you start realizing that like your income increases and you're in a different tax bracket, and now you owe Uncle Sam because you didn't necessarily do what you needed to do. And so that jump is a knowledge gap that like is also really important for people to be able to understand and to, like you said, minimize your liabilities and assets to be able to showcase how to do it in a legal way to protect yourself in taxes. So you have to get someone to talk you through that, which I think is important. But I think it starts with like being exposed and then dealing with your fear, and then making the sacrifice to get there. But a lot of my stuff had to do, I too had a mentor. And I think that everyone in life, no matter where you're at in life, you know, with your boys, with your friends, otherwise, you need to just take somebody. If someone is living a lifestyle that you're like, man, how they living that lifestyle? You need to go have an awkward conversation and be like, listen, I need to know what you're doing financially. I'm not trying to rob you. Let me start there. That's not what's happening here. But I want my family to be able to get to where you're at, and I want to be able to talk through that. Can you help me start to figure that out? And then I think beyond that, you know, I think it's important to create a peer group of individuals who are trying to do what you're trying to do, or be a part of a peer group in that way. You know, because that's what got me on the pathway that I'm in right now, is that peer group that Michael Meredith and Andre created for us. And I'm proud of all the guys who came out of that. Many of them are doing a lot of big flips now, and they're making a lot of money, and I'm super proud of them. But that group is definitely, I mean, and to this day, we're still super connected. And then I just think about like this idea around it's, you know, credit and making sure you're able to get that right, but really negotiating. Like you have to, like what we don't do in our community, we do not negotiate anything. People tell us financially what something's going to be, and then we take it. We're like, okay, that's going to be the price. And I think that's American culture. Where if you go to, you know, if you're in Africa and you're dealing with certain folks in Africa, they're going to negotiate the hell out of everything. You go to India, same thing. You go to, you know, and we don't negotiate. You know, and so I just started, it's an uncomfortable circumstance, or I think it feels uncomfortable to people, but there's a couple of good books that can teach you about negotiations, which I think is important. I was looking for, I'm looking at my bookshelf, but like, give you time to find it. You want the name. Yeah. Listen, I want y'all to, that negotiation piece is so huge, not just accepting what folks give you, but trying to negotiate as best as you can. And I'll also say, let me take a step back for those who haven't bought a house and trying to get on that pathway. I mean, at 23, trying to buy a house, I remember that process. I was making, I think, $42,000 a year, and that was really good for me in that moment. Mind you, not great coming out of law school, but good because I felt good about what I was doing. And what I'll say is, you know, I had the opportunity to save up money. Well, hell, let me tell you what really happened. So I was like, okay, I want to be able to buy. And I remember saving some money, but I didn't realize how much money I needed to save for the houses that I was looking at. I knew my income allowed me to be able to qualify for something, but it like what you qualify for and what you need in the bank in order to close and all that stuff are two different things. Two
worlds, two different worlds.
Say it again for the people in the back.
They like two different worlds. What they say you qualify for and what you need in the bank to close are two different worlds.
You gotta meet up.
And look, let me say this, because I think my wife is on here now. Excuse this, baby, but I just want to acknowledge that my then dear friend and ex-girlfriend at the time became quickly my fiance, because she had to lend me money in order to finish closing, and then I paid her back within like a 2-month time period. But I wouldn't have been able to buy my house without Leah Roller. So I just want to shout her out and say thank you for that loan. That was great. I apologize for the bank. She was not my fiance, but we made that happen, and I'm paying on time, and I've been paying on time for the last 10 years. So I just want to acknowledge that. I had to put that together, you know.
Okay, I don't know how many people.
Hey, welcome, Ms. Ashely. Welcome.
Yeah. Listen, the thing that I want to also acknowledge is that after I bought the house, I tell this story all the time to folks, man. I thought I was robbed. I thought I got robbed, guys. I walked into the house. I'm like, where in the hell is the refrigerator? We literally just had a walkthrough a week ago. That refrigerator was there. Somebody has stole a refrigerator. They stole and so, you know, I didn't write that in my contract. I didn't negotiate, right? And so, and my silly self, because I'm first generation I just thought the house came how it came. you know,
Right.
so my silly self, man, I didn't know any of that, man. And trying to furnish a house, my God, there was just so many things. I ended up taking a second job, man. So I worked at the Cheesecake Bistro in Metairie. So if you saw me during that time, I was probably a really good server. I was the only Black male server in Metairie at the Cheesecake Bistro. I enjoyed every bit of that experience. Very humbling to be a lawyer during the day and then come and serve at night. But I enjoyed every bit of it. I just want to acknowledge everyone who was a part of that journey. And I want to thank everyone who tipped me, because that allowed me to buy my couch and my refrigerator. And,
You had a goal.
yeah, those things are still rolling. And I made sure to get warranties on every damn thing, because everything is getting a warranty. I don't care what's happening. So, I mean, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, because that process was not easy. And my credit score was relatively fine. I think the only debt that I had at the time was my law school debt, my law school debt. And I was able to acquire the house. But, thank God I had a friend who had money saved up that allowed me to be able to close. And the good thing between closing is you always get that month of reprievement, meaning you don't have to, like, I went from paying monthly rent, and then you buy a house, and then you get 1 month where you don't have to pay, and then you start paying that following month. So I got an opportunity to save that money and send an extra couple dollars to her. So I was out of debt with her within the first 2-3 months of me owning my house. So I was excited about that. And I want to thank Cheesecake Bistro for hiring me. Just thank you. So, but yeah, man, that's my first house story at 23, man. I had a lot of friends tell me that I wasn't stable, that I shouldn't have bought, that I shouldn't have done it. And what I'll tell you is, I think as a young person, I was arrogant. So like, I appreciate everyone who said that, but I made it.
Right.
So, but I also want to just acknowledge that it financially was the best thing I ever did for myself, right? That fear, because there's this fear of, if I have this asset and I'm unemployed and I miss something, what happens then? Honestly, that asset became the biggest financial opportunity, because when I own my house, or I'm technically loaning it from the bank until I own it outright. I got another 20 years, but I semi-own it, and so doing that allowed me I can rent a room out, right? I can rent a room out. I can do something creative financially here. And so it allowed me more flexibility than if I was just renting a space. And I think that over the years, man, has been, extremely, important to me, being able to have that first house at 23, which I still own and love in the Gentilly area.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really, really important just to hear that great story. We helped a young man. He's 23 years old. He purchased a double. He closed last week. He have a brother who's 21. And so both of them is going to live on one side of that duplex, and the other side they're going to rent out. He wasn't making a whole lot of money, right? If I recall, it's like maybe $2,300 a month gross.
Yeah.
But his debts was low, no debts. So his cash flow was good.
Yeah.
Credit score was high, and having that duplex, that even though no one's living in or have a lease in that other side, we could still use future rental income to help him to qualify for that mortgage. So it was just a blessing just to see him and his brother close at such a young age, because they were so focused. Yeah. And now, when you hear stories like that, it's amazing. So we got a couple of questions for you, and then we're going to start to wrap up. The first question, this is our Q&A section for you. Our first question to you is, if you can go back in time, Ethan, and coach the younger Ethan, what financial advice would you give him?
Man, that's such a great question, man. Oh man, that's such a great question. Look, there's a couple things. One, I had the opportunity to work for a big law firm during my second year of law school. I made a lot of money in a short amount of time, got to see what that felt like. And I think I would have told my younger self to save some of that money and start to figure out ways that I would like to invest it in the future. But I did hood rat things with my hood rat friends, and I just want to acknowledge that I had a really good time and those experiences were great. But I definitely would have told myself to save and start reading a little bit more.
There you go.
Right.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you
Yep.
for sharing.
Yeah. And the next question would be, why did you decide to become a servant leader in the community?
Oh man, I think it has everything to do with my own personal upbringing, and like, shout out to my mother. I love her to death. But I my circumstance of growing up the way that I did with my brothers, there was moments in life where I was trying to figure out whether or not there was an adult who were thinking about my mother and my brothers. And in the same way, I think, Randy, in which you were growing up, like, was there somebody else outside of us who were thinking about how to make our lives a little easier, understanding the flow of things? And so, I now seek to be that adult for the young people and families who aren't as well off and privileged. And so, how can I make it easier for you? How can I support you all? Because I know what it's like to be on that side of the coin. And I think government, I mean, we're in one of the richest countries in the world. I think it's embarrassing that we were able to find trillions of dollars to pump our community with. But I mean, there's been poverty and racism and challenges in inner cities for years. And now the pandemic raised it to the level in which, it was a crisis. Now it's been a crisis. People been hurting and needing support. So, government can do it, man. It's just, I think, a matter of will. And I want to be one of those folks in government that's trying to push us.
Awesome. And obviously you saw a need to create an investment group. So, tell us, why did you create that investment group?
Man, it's just something about being able to provide folks that are in need the opportunity to receive capital when they can. I think that's huge, particularly being of color. And I think systematically, if you know the history of banks and how they have never necessarily done right by us. I'm super privileged that that we have one of the largest Black-owned banks in Liberty Bank in the city. Mr. McDonald and Duplessis and others, Todd E. McDonald, they've always been good by me and our family, and they've largely been, I think, really well by our community. But by and large, the bigger banks haven't necessarily offered lending opportunities, and that's a challenge. So, how can I support the community when they're building something or doing something, and do it on the other side, man, and be able to see growth and development of your own community. I think that's why I do it. Like, I want to make sure our community is building, growing, developing. And then there's obviously the opportunity of being able to get a couple coins off of that, which is great. But by and large, it's more like social impact support, like the loans are long, the interest is low. It's,
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Good. Yep. And what advice would you give an individual that may want to purchase a home?
Oh man. First, probably call Randy and Veronica. They probably gonna help you out to get started with your.
You're a good dude.
Get your personal plan and personal finances together. And I think the second thing, man, is probably to do two things. Honestly, the first thing I would say is to go on Zillow or Reddit or some platform and start looking at houses that you really love and the circumstance that you really want to be in. And then from there, get the numbers in place that you think you could, that you would want to get to. And then from there, I think after you have an ideal place, now you know where you want to get to, and now you have a goal. Now you're invested. You've seen what it looks like, and now you want to be able to taste it and experience it. And so you put that on your vision board, and you tell everybody around you what you're doing, and watch the world start to open up with you. Like, you got to get a whole crew around you. Tell people what you're doing. Don't be embarrassed. Say, right. Look, I don't have it right now, but I want to get there. Do you have somebody to connect me with? Go find you a mentor. Hey, look, I see you owning something. Can you teach me how you got here? Teach me some of the pitfalls, some of the things I didn't know. And I think those things will ultimately, that mentor, that peer group, and then, getting with a professional like you two to be able to support you, but also just be motivated to get there. So print that out, put that on your vision board, and I know you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, sir. So listen, guys, we're going to go to our next section. We're getting ready to wrap up. And that is the quote of the week. Every week on the radio show, we do a quote just to keep people motivated, get them to the next week. So today's quote is going to be, not having goals is like having no idea where you want to go when you step into an airline counter to buy a ticket. And that's by Les Brown. I'll read that again. Not having goals is like having no idea where you want to go when you step up to an airline counter to buy a ticket. And Mr. Ashely just said it just a moment ago, having a vision. It's clear, it's plain, you know exactly what your target, that's your goal. It just have to be a burning desire. And if that burning desire is there, guys, that's going to keep you motivated to keep pushing forward when the challenges come, because life's going to test you to see if you really want it or you just talking, right? But on the other side of that challenge, and the only thing that's going to get you through that other side is going to be belief that it's already done and you can obtain it. And two, the faith. And how you build up the faith and build up the belief is by watching educational tools like this, right? Other educational tools. Because when you understand something, then now you have more confidence to move forward. So guys, that's our quote of the day. As we leave off, Mr. Ashely, how can someone reach you, or how can they connect with you on social media?
So I'm all things Ethan C. Ashely on social media. And I think if you ever need me, you can DM me, you can contact me in that way. I'm pretty responsive. And man, I just want to make sure I say this before I leave, man. I'm super grateful for you all doing this for our community and allowing me the opportunity. And I think it's really important to LOL, which is to love out loud. And so I love y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you. I love y'all who's listening. It matters. You guys matter. We're living in real strange times. And so, getting financially healthy is definitely a way, I think, for us to be able to sustain, and letting people know how much they matter on this side of the dirt is also really important. So love y'all so much.
Love
Absolutely.
you too, Ethan.
So guys, with that being said, I'm Randy Chambliss. You can find me on Facebook or even Instagram at Mr. Randy Chambliss. My direct number, feel free to text me, inbox me. It's 504-270-2783.
And I'm Veronica Chambliss. I can be found on social media under Veronica Chambliss. You can also find me online at vknowsmortgages.com. And my direct contact number is 504-715-4388. And Ethan, let's get financial education in the school.
Yes, we love it. We love it. Well, listen, have a good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your night on purpose. God bless. Take care.
Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Mr. Laurie. Don't go nowhere yet.
Thank you. Good night. Enjoyed it.
You
All
too.
right.
Thank
Guys.
you.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
I will be calling you.
Please do. Please do.
All right. And thanks, Ethan, for allowing us to put this program in the school, the career piece with the ambulance training.
That's right. That's right.
Thank
That's
you
right.
everyone. When the NAACP did that, I want to say thank you, man. We got some more coming. I got an AT&T piece I'm going to bring to you all next week.
Please
Good work,
do.
man. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, brother. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Ethan, this I was trying to say. When you first came to New Orleans, I don't know if you remember meeting me, but my kids were at KIP and we had a meeting. And I came home and told my husband, I said, they have this young guy that just came here. He's a part of the school board. And I can honestly say, I respect his transparency. When we were asking questions like, hey, we need this. How can we do this? How can we do that? He was like, look, we don't have the money. All I can do is shut up. I was like, okay, all right.